an honor to have you guys here, and for me to personally interview you guys, because MassCann's a big part of my life, and very happy that you guys could come on and celebrate this morning.
Oh, come on. Yeah, we'd love to be a part of this, especially 420. Happy Q420.
You guys see, this is my coffee mug this morning.
There you go. Jeez, I didn't even think of that. I grabbed my water bottle.
That's funny. Well, you got to stay hydrated, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, I have my cup is in the microwave. I just heated up some water and I put my oil in there.
Perfect.
So to thin it out, it was kind of seized up. Yeah.
Introduce Bill Flynn. Bill, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and how long you've been involved with MassCann?
Oh, wow. Good morning, Julie. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Bill Flynn. I'm the president of the Mass Cannabis Reform Coalition here in Massachusetts. MassCann for 25 years or more. We're going into our 31st year as an advocacy group here in Boston. Well, actually, the whole state of Massachusetts. Again, an advocacy group for consumers here in Boston, and trying to get people involved and begin lobbying, talking with the State House, with your representatives, and basically trying to end the stigma of cannabis use in Massachusetts. Which we're trying to end prohibition here. So again, it's a descheduling of cannabis at the federal level is what we're trying to do. End prohibition, basically. We're not a pro-cannabis group, or we're an anti-prohibition group, but a lot of us do smoke cannabis, and we use it as a medicine, nutraceutical, so to speak, and people find more, a lot of relief with that rather than going on a prescription drug. As a matter of fact, we do have a lot of people that have switched from opiates to cannabis, which is, a good thing, I guess, I believe.
Absolutely. My story. So, how did you personally get involved with cannabis, and why did you want to tackle such a big?
I was sick with cancer back in 1989, and I experimented with cannabis, and when cancer was coming, it was all about the smoking. So I brought it up to my doctor, and he was like, no, don't fall into that. He was saying, if anything, it's going to help you through, through the regimen that you go on. So it was chemotherapy and radiation therapy. So after a few tests, they decided that if I don't use cannabis, I could step away from the chemo, but I still went under some radiation treatment. Again, I used cannabis, was smoking it, I was eating it, and then oil started coming around. That seemed to be a big thing for a while anyway. So my thing was, again, this is back, before all of this is cool now, before decrim and all that, you can get in trouble.
Yeah.
For having weed, smoking weed.
Significant.
Even having it on you. And I was like, this has to stop. So I talked to a few people, and they says, well, hey, you got to contact this guy from Marblehead, Steve Epstein. He's in High Times and this and that. And I looked at it, and there it was in the back of High Times, lawyer, Marblehead, Steve Epstein. So I called him up, and he says, well, look, I'm with this group, MassCann, Mass Cannabis Reform Coalition. And he says, come out and see what we have to say. And maybe this is something you'd be interested in. Maybe we can help you out somehow. But like I said, everything had already passed. But the thing is I can't let this happen to anybody else. Anybody's children, especially. Okay? Not to say that I was a child, but this could have happened to any kid, any high school kid.
Absolutely, and it ruins lives.
Yeah, right, exactly right. It ruins lives. This has ruined my life. This is, whether it be a job, through relationships that I've had, male and female, just because of what I do. And
Mike just called me.
yeah, sure.
You meet Bill down. You meet Bill, because I know we got Bill on the line here too. Bill's been heavily involved in the movement for many, many years. And Bill, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Bill. Top of the morning, Bill. Bill was one of the first people I met when I went to MassCan's. Like I said, Steven invited me, and I had gone. It was at the Holiday Inn in Peabody, and they had the function room there. And Bill Downing is one of the first people I met there when I got there.
And you participated with us despite that.
Yeah, right, exactly. I hung in there.
Right.
Oh my God, you guys are great. And Bill, thank you. Welcome. Happy 420. Thank you for joining us this morning as well. Bill has been a significant member and activist.
Part of this, so let me introduce the MassCann Education Village. Maybe I shouldn't go so fast. And what I do typically is give the introduction. So here's the introduction, and we can read along this dramatic reading here. Introduction. We all respect the laws of the land as they are what keeps us civilized, and we assume the laws are on the books for a good reason, and that our legislators have done their due diligence, and the laws are equitable and just, and we don't need to be concerned. But when our experience with the herb is at such odds with government oppression and militarized policing, then we need to examine what happened.
Exactly.
Okay? Now, this is the tough part. This is just really horrible. But, we're going to be soldiers. We're going to soldier on here.
We're going to be
okay. The first thing is, do you want to do this slide like this, Lorna, or can you put the slide up? Well, yeah?
Yeah, I can put the slide up if you want the Enslinger one.
Now, half the time, I refuse to read this out loud because I don't want these words in my mouth. This is the foundation of, politics and being used to. There are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S., and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana usage. I'm skipping that. Forget it. Forget that. Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death. You smoke a joint and you're likely to kill your brother. Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind.
Oh,
so that was the tax. I think the Tax Stamp Act of 1937, and in Nixon's era, it was declared unconstitutional because of a catch-22. So, and this is about the time when hippies, including moi, were protesting the Vietnam War, and of course he governs by resentment, just like. And so he had Schaefer, the government of Pennsylvania, take a look and studied as to whether to re-up the law or just drop it. And Schaefer, after 2 years, said, drop it, it's harmless. But the Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, poppy bush, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. Bill Downing, do you want to address, speak, what happened? Did you raid their homes? Can you speak to that?
Well, yeah, my home was raided. I had a SWAT team come in both my business and my home. And also, they tried to take all my family's money through a forfeiture procedure, and that's a whole conversation.
Well, I think what's more horrifying.
Just a quick note about Ann Slinger's quote there, just so it's clear to people, I want them to know that was his testimony before Congress.
Right. Yeah.
And can you imagine someone saying something like what Kathryn was just quoting from him before Congress today? What the reaction would be? This wasn't just a letter to the editor or some comment on a radio show. This was his actual speech to Congress, where he was saying these things. And the only reason we know, we have absolute proof of Nixon targeting quote-unquote Jews, blacks, and hippies, because Jews were in there too, Kathryn. I know you know that.
Right.
The only reason we know that is because he was forced to hand over the secret recordings of the Oval Office tapes. And that was all a result of the Watergate investigation.
Right.
Oh, really? Yeah, that was part of that.
Yeah.
So Flynn, were you thrown in jail?
Not really, no.
Okay.
It was an overnighter.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the thing. Like Bill says, forfeiture. I had money, and they kept me out of jail, but they took all my money.
Okay. But what happened, of Robespierre, this is just heartbreaking. This is the most heartbreaking photo in the freaking world. You don't do this. You don't do this. Somebody had to tell the police to stand down.
And that was MassCann.
Especially since here, this is Boston, 2014. You decrimmed in 2008. 2012 was medical, and no one told them to stand down, is what I'm saying. Red dots are arrests, and these are town. The green is minority, and the blue is white. This is Boston, and it's going on to this day. And this is John Sinclair, a leader in the community, and he's come to the Boston Flynn Downing.
Yeah, back in the beginning.
Nice. And this is Brazil. This is the favelas of Brazil. Same thing. Same freaking thing. And
plants away.
Yeah.
Kathryn,
We're going to stop.
Unfortunately, this, prohibition, it's been a worldwide organization.
Yes, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, as your previous speaker was saying, reefer madness.
Exactly.
Look at this. This is when the media, sensing blood, go in for the kill, just make it the most obnoxious thing going. So there's a 10-cent Dell up there in the right corner, a 10-cent Dell paperback. Okay.
Yeah, Kathryn, I want to point out something about these posters.
Yeah.
There's, first of all, they're showing, in some of them they show hypodermic needles and associate injection drugs with marijuana.
Right.
Which is just totally ridiculous. But also, you'll notice that in all these posters, there is a combination of sex and drugs.
Right.
They're scantily clad women. The idea is being promoted by these posters and these movies that, if women use marijuana, that they'll have sex with men randomly.
But then that might be a good thing.
The attack
they stress the fact of the mingling with jazz singers and all that.
Exactly. They specifically targeted, and what were the jazz singers? They were African American community. So the concept of, hey, if you smoke this, your wife is going to go leave you for a jazz musician.
Right.
And it's mad at
or black man. Because some of the posters depict devils who strangely look like African Americans.
Okay, so here we have, moving on, we have militarized police in here, and, taking out the helicopters and the SWAT teams for a plant that cannot run away is so berserk. So anyhow, we have here the eroding exclusionary rule. Let me see if I can pull this to the light. Oops, oh damn. Oh, sorry.
Okay, Kathryn.
Oh, heavens. Well, that's sort of the, what comes to the, Bones crew knows how to handle that. Okay, so this was the eroding exclusionary rule. The 1600s, your castle is your home is your castle. All right? In the 1791, this is embedded in the U.S. Constitution against unreasonable searches, the Fourth Amendment. Okay? And 1914, illegal evidence from illegal searches excluded from trials. And prior notice required before police can force entry. And then it just, descends from there. 2003, police can force entries 15 seconds after knocking or giving notice. In 2006, no suppression of evidence obtained from evidence from illegal searches are not suppressed. Okay, so that's what's happened with this. Just this. Okay, so let's get over to some more fun thing over here. We have this panel. This is activism. This is going to be a fun panel. And so we have these, this great artwork is from the 8th rally, Free the No More Prisoners. So 8 was 22 years ago. People on Mount Malta, in front of listening to the music. Perfectly, I don't see any syringes and wild orgies, but, So I think this is the original. The original Freedom Rally.
That's rally number 2.
Yeah. Okay, and it was in front of the U.S. Constitution. It was, and then the next one is at the Boston Common. So this one
the next one is in the State House steps, then the Boston Common.
Right. Okay. Now, was there one before?
Yes, there was one in Pittsfield. That was number 1.
Okay, so we count 3 before we start the anniversary of the. And then Downing, would you like to address going to the city and trying to, how many times do you go to the city because they're trying to shut us down and it's free speech every time?
We sued them. We have to go to them every year because they are required to issue us a permit. But they use the permitting process as a political tool, which shouldn't really surprise people. They actually just had to deal with that with a grand jury and a whole bunch of union people.
Question. May I?
Absolutely. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. You were at the Constitution, or we were at the Constitution, then we're at the State House. Did we just go to the Common? I don't remember the first one at the Common. Did we just go to the Common, or was there a permit?
That was the first one that I actually started kind of doing the operations part of it.
Okay.
And I remember it pretty clearly because the police and the park rangers were sort of helpful to us back then. I think that they didn't really believe that our event would draw people. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, they shared some things with us, including an aerial photograph of the setup for when the Pope came to Boston.
Right.
And that was very important for us because, a lot of times they were arguing that our crowds were too big, and the crowd for the Pope was 500,000 people.
Right.
And of course, they did everything they possibly could to deny us permits, right from just not responding to any of our phone calls or any of our letters or applications, to trying to get rid of us one way or the other. A big problem was that they understood that the reason that the rally was able to operate was that it was the vending of food was the only reason that we could afford to run the event. And so they were constantly trying to shut us down from selling any food in various ways. For a while, we had a partnership with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston, and they helped us set up some of the first rallies by giving us layouts and other advice, and we gave them all of our food money. It was almost $10,000 a year one year, I recall.
That was
You're right.
But then we asked the Boys and Girls Clubs if we could, let people know we're a major donor to the Boston Boys and Girls Clubs.
Right.
And they totally freaked. They said, no, we don't want to have anything to do with you. You know, if you do something like that, we'll return all your money. And this is it. Goodbye.
But they'll take money from Big Pharma.
Right, yeah.
And,
well, yeah, but, we were a political group, so it was, we're a public education organization, but we were doing a lot of political work, too. It's understandable why the Boys and Girls Clubs would be hesitant to be associated with the marijuana legalization organization.
Absolutely. It's back when it was still developing.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but anyway, they actually had an exclusive contract with Boston Parks Department for food vending on all the parks. So MassCann had to go to court for several reasons, several different times, but one of them was because they had this contract and the courts said that your contract doesn't apply. Sorry, MassCann has the right to sell food at their event.
Okay, nice. Okay.
Back to Kathryn. I'm going to put you back on, Kathryn, so we can see.
Okay, so this is history, and this is fascinating. These pictures, I will say right now, Bill Downing used to teach at New England Institute of Cannabis.
Northeastern.
And a lot of these are, just about all of them are from Bill's teaching. And so you could riff forever on this, couldn't you? But this right here, this is Dama.
Yep.
It's a shed with two plants hanging, or it's a house with a married couple in it.
Interesting.
Well, the reason that supposedly the reason that they had two plants was to indicate that it was a type of plant where there was a male and a female.
Well, that's good too. So it's a biologic reason.
Right. Now that guy's a Sumerian.
Is he smoking a chillum?
It appears to be, yes. But of course, this was way before tobacco was introduced to the old world. So we don't really know what he was smoking in it, do we?
Well, here's some for this. I was looking for this. There was a picture of it was a painting in a cave, and it looked like somebody with a typical of the time Korean was had in a boat, and it had plants, and he had. Now I'm going to point to this right here on the. This is Egyptian hieroglyph. A person here, and a stalk here, and leaves radiating out with a halo over it.
That's the Egyptian goddess Seshat.
Okay, this was the same thing, the same little artist thing that was on the cave in Japan coming from Korea. So I have a suspicion this kind of symbology was sort of prevalent, and everybody in the Far East knew what it was we were talking about. So this is awesome. There's Korean armor made stuffed and probably stuffed with hemp, right?
Yeah, it's woven hemp textile layers. It's many layers thick, woven hemp textile. And the amazing thing about it, of course, is that they were using it to stop spears and arrows and things like that.
Right.
And hemp is strong enough so that it can actually do those kinds of things.
As a matter of fact, okay,
how old is that?
One more thing here.
That's from 700 AD Korea.
Okay, yeah, nice. So here's a tomb with and if you take this to the eternity, you must value it.
That's from 10,000 AD. I mean BC.
So now here is the colonies. So let me remember, so we're talking about the textile from hemp, and it turns out it is more durable. It resists rotting and wear more than, say, linen and cotton. So if you had hemp sails and rigging on your ship, you had supremacy of the seas. So the colonies grew for the British Crown. It was a law that if you were a landowner, you had to grow for the Crown. and the Yucatan grew for the Spanish Armada. And so here is, this is a Portuguese document with all the cannabis in the various languages. That might be English. I don't know what these various languages are. But this is Portuguese.
A little bit?
Huh? This is.
Oh yeah, no, it says right on there: Portuguese, French, Italian. Yeah, Kathryn's doing a good job.
I don't know this up here.
No, she was just asking for the top. What
the top one up here.
New.
I think those are all languages where that first word, Mafiola, is used in all those languages. So one of them is Germanic.
Up here, this is probably cannabis.
That's referring to that particular.
Portuguese is Olinho Canemi. French is chanvre. Italian is canapé. España is cañamo. And Alemania is Zonterhof. But up here, I'm not sure what these, that might be some kind of English, Turkish, who knows? Okay, and then this one here, I don't know if we, this was a slide. This is le chanvre et le ligne et le produit. So it's linen and hemp and products that you can make from them. And speaking of Korean armor, this was the Battle of the Bales, evidently. In the Civil War, the Confederates hid behind bales of hemp and the Yankees were up there on the hill.
It's the first battle of Lexington, Missouri.
Oh, okay.
And this first battle was won by the Confederacy. And the beauty of the hemp bales was hemp is so strong and thick that you can fire a shot into it and it won't pass all the way through. So you can use it as a moving wall.
Oh, you keep rolling it in front of you. That's funnier than hell.
Right.
That's right. They would move the hemp bale and they would hide behind it and shoot from behind the hemp bales. And the other part of that story is that the Union soldiers, having experienced hemp themselves, knew that if they heated up their mini balls, it's like a musket ball, it's got rifle.
Oh, yes, right.
That they could fire those hot mini balls into the hemp bales and that they would burst into flames by making their barrier, disappear.
Okay.
But the problem is the Confederates had considered that in advance of the battle, and they'd been soaking these hemp bales in a local pond for a couple of weeks.
Okay, very nice.
So then they wouldn't catch on fire.
So they could not.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. So here's the modern use. We have a hemp car, and this was way back. This is 1938. They knew about this, and it was suppressed. And then now we have the nutritional. We're rediscovering the benefits of hemp. Here's nutrition. Get your hemp milk and have it every morning on your granola. And here's a little blurb from Sears, I think, for hashish candy. And let's roll on because we're getting close. So this is continuing with this is from Boston. See those red lines? This is around the Charleston shipyard too. Those red lines are about a mile long. And that's how long they needed to make a good roll of rope. So they would put out a rail line, and have all these little spinning bobbins here. And the cart would take that weaver and roll backwards as it is being spun. And you have, this is supremacy of the seas right here. And it's funny when it was revered well enough that it was on the dollar. See if I can get the light off here. It was on the dollar.
$10
bill. Okay. And in the time of telephones, still working the cannabis field, I have a suspicion this was hemp for victory. When all of a sudden is that right, Bill?
No, it's just a postcard.
Oh, okay. So this wasn't obviously because of the Hemp for Victory
No,
thing.
Hemp for Victory, they had actual harvesting equipment they showed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when if you went down like South Carolina, stop on by.
They're showing slave laborers. And cutting hemp stalk is probably the most difficult farm job you can have.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And they didn't have the equipment we have today, unfortunately.
They're doing it with hand size.
Exactly.
I was going to say, yeah, hand size. Just chop at it. That's a...
And you know what's even worse? Harvesting wheat nowadays, they put the Roundup on it so the stalks will weaken and the steel doesn't get blunt so fast. So, I mean, harvesting, has been a thing. So anyhow, all for this fiber. Now, the thing is, see inside there, the carbon is such a pure carbon that it's going to be really cheaply make these nano graphene. And it turns out natural graphene is superior to synthetic graphene. And who the hell knew that? So anyhow, this is for Elon Musk's super batteries. We're going to drive around in electric cars with hemp energy in it. Now, let me go from here, I want to go to medical. And one of the things I had for medical, let me show you this. This is the U.S. Pharmacopoeia. And this was the encyclopedia for pharmacists before pharma. So you had instructions on how to, and look at, somebody wrote in, do you see the pencil? Somebody wrote in pencil, poison, a narcotic, and they're going to take it out. There was notice that they were going to take this out of that cannabis was going to be taken out of the pharmacopoeia. Harry Anslinger was going to force this private publishing company and to take out an herb from their pharmacopoeia, and that is intellectual fascism. So from there, let's go. And Downing, could you say a word?
About Charlotte Figi. So Charlotte Figi, as a very young child, started having very serious epileptic seizures. And later she was diagnosed with very, very serious, life-threatening epilepsy called Dravet's syndrome. And she was having a dozen or so seizures every day. And this was virtually life-threatening. And her parents were desperate for solutions. They'd been to doctors and tried many, many different medications, all to no avail. And they'd heard anecdotal things being said, patients who had said that they'd used cannabis and it had helped with the control of their seizures. And so they thought, we've got nothing to lose. Our child may die. We've got to try everything we possibly can try. So they contacted these two brothers, the Stanley brothers. And the Stanley brothers had a strain of cannabis that they had seen had possibilities for helping to control seizures with some of the people they were dealing with. And so they tried it with this young girl, and lo and behold, she almost immediately went from a dozen seizures a day to a couple of seizures a week. The improvement was just blaringly obvious. And so the Stanley brothers named this strain of cannabis after the little girl. And her name was Charlotte Figi, as I'd mentioned before. So they named it Charlotte's Web. And that's, of course, the name of the famous children's book about the pig and the spider. And then they started a company which is now one of the very largest hemp products companies in the world. They're traded on the Canadian market. They're sold under the brand Charlotte's Web. And CBD has now been approved by the FDA as a prescription drug for the control of seizures.
Synthetic or natural?
That's actually a natural CBD it's patented by GW Pharma. And actually the only thing that is allowed as a prescription is the GW Pharma drug.
Correct. The dialect.
Buy CBD anywhere else. It's non-prescription, and its legal status is very gray market.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill, for that. And just a brief moment. We lost Charlotte a couple weeks ago, and just want to give some condolences and a moment of silence for her and her family. And I know that a lot of them were connected to, a lot of us are connected to the Colorado groups, you know, and it's a big loss for the community. So, you know, we send our condolences, and a moment of silence for Charlotte right now would be great. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Bill, for explaining all that. That's phenomenal information. Kathryn, I'm going to take it back to you if you had something else to share. We're about 11 minutes out. I want to make sure that everybody knows how to get in contact with you and in contact with Bill and Bill Downing for the group, how they get involved with activism and helping their community and pushing the movement forward. So we're going to definitely talk about that a little bit further.
So the Bills can take over. I'll stand down. Thank you all for attending the, this is the first time really that I've been a school marm and walked through the whole thing. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
You know, given the circumstances that we can't do this in person, you have done a phenomenal job learning the tech behind it. So we appreciate that. Bill, I'm going to take it back to you for a moment. And how can people get involved in their community? What can they do watching at home right now to help push this movement forward in the state of Massachusetts and on a national scale as well?
Of course, people should think globally and act locally, as the saying goes. And acting locally means doing hard things. It's very, very hard to stand up in your community and be a representative for the needs of the cannabis consuming public. And I can tell you from personal experience that it's difficult, but it has to be done. And that means when there's articles about cannabis, for instance, there's been a series of articles just recently about how Governor Baker has decided to not allow recreational cannabis while stores to remain open while allowing liquor stores to remain open, which is obviously an unfair thing. And when you read an article like that in your local paper, you might want to pick up a pen and look up the editor's contact information and write a short letter to the editor. If you want pointers on, talking points on things, I'd suggest you go to the MassCann website. That's www.masscann.org. And there's always good information there, but of course there's lots and lots of other information all over the place. And that's the ultimate of acting locally, is being in contact with the people in your community through, for instance, a local newspaper, something like that. And that's a great way to start. And then, of course, being in contact with your legislators, because there are legislators who are on our side and there are legislators who are opposed to us, but all of them will listen to you. And one of the beauties of talking to your local legislators is that very, very few people do. And so when you talk to them, they have to really pay attention, because so few people communicate with them. For every one that communicates, they know that there are 1,000 that aren't communicating.
Right.
And so that's very, very important. And if you can, find a little bit about what their stand on the issue is before you speak with them, so that you can kind of position yourself properly. Because some of these people are very strong. We have legislators here in Massachusetts who are just wonderful, wonderful people who've helped MassCann and helped our cause beautifully. And then there are legislators who have been real sticks in the mud. And we can tell you who they are.
All right, Bill, I'm going to flip over to Bill Flynn for a second. Bill, can you tell the public when you guys meet, how to get involved, how to become a member, what that process looks like?
Okay. Well, as Bill had said, you can check out our website, MassCann.org. Get you all kinds of information. We usually have a board of directors meeting, which we had changed up this year to the third Wednesday of the month. But with this whole coronavirus thing going on, we've set it up with a Zoom account that we have, and that's been going pretty good. We had a couple so far. Hopefully this doesn't continue on.
Yeah.
But coming into the next month, we don't know so far. But that's where we are now. So you can, again, check out social media where those, the availability for Zoom to get on that can be seen. I believe that's also on our website.
Right. We have a Zoom every day at 4:20. And
yeah, right. Also, there's a Zoom chat at 4:20 chat. And log yourself in. You might not be a member yet, but the attendance. We're looking at attendance. That way, people come and they know more about MassCann and what we're all about.
Awesome.
When you do sign up and become a member, or maybe this isn't for you, but at least you understand what we're here for. Again, we're not a pro-cannabis group, we're an anti-prohibition group. And there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way. And as Kathryn explained through the screens there, that this should have never happened. This is a lie bestowed on the public for over 80 years.
Exactly.
And
I was even going to do the Hebrew where it was in the Bible. But I practiced saying this Hebrew, Julie.
How do you practice?
You're
all the way, girl.
We ran a little show. I even had a nice little pointer so I wouldn't put my finger on I even had the Torah up here.
Guys, in Israel, they are using cannabis in the hospitals right now.
Since 1999.
Right.
Pandemic cannabis
when Dr. McCallum put the endocannabinoid system, and people were talking about that. Again, more education. People understand that it's useful. The body requires it.
Right.
Your body can only produce so much.
And with the stress nowadays, it needs more.
Right. So there needs to be something for this. I look at it as, like I say, a nutraceutical. Say a diabetic, can only produce so much, from their body. So they need something to, the insulin to enhance that. So, they're not having, bodily, harm to their body. They're maintaining a balance.
Right.
Bringing your, with cannabis going through your CBD receptors, whether through your nervous system, or through your blood and all that, it's shutting off receptors that keep firing off. Brings you back to homeostasis where your body's calm and able to function, and you're able to think a little clearer. Where people think you have a fog brain and you can't.
I even said that I was going into surgery, and I was giving a speech to the whole surgical team, and homeostasis. And the anesthesiologist said, "Oh, everybody knows weed calms you down." And I said, "I'm in good hands, carry on." So they wheeled me in.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, let me just intersect for 1 second. What are the membership fees, and where does that money go? Why is it so crucial that people sign up and give their financial support? Where does that go?
Well, it goes to things that we should be doing. We're trying to raise money to change, put ballot initiatives. Public policy questions is the big thing.
Yeah, I spent money going to Staples and doing did lobbying.
Right, money goes to that, so we have paperwork to go and talk to our legislators, to show them what bills we're supporting. Again, it goes into the other different events that we get to go.
I think a big point is that none of it goes toward administrative costs. None of it goes toward office overhead or telephones or any of that stuff. Well, maybe a cell phone. Our overhead as an organization is teeny tiny. Almost every dollar that comes in is used for an activist effort.
Right. And you guys also support, individuals that have been afflicted by, by prohibition, right?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Like that?
We're all about, the consumer, trying to help everybody, the people of the Commonwealth. Going into, like I said, our big event is the Boston Freedom Rally. So,
and those who have never heard of that, tell us a little bit about that event and how long that's been going on for.
This would be our 30.
And Bill,
it's been going on in Boston Common. Yeah.
Are you just
it's the day of civil disobedience.
Yeah.
It's a get together of people, like-minded people, music, food, and good conversation. And again, civil disobedience, which we think is still relevant today because there is no social consumption place to go.
Absolutely.
And and from what I understand, the Boston Common, this is the only place I say the only place on the planet where first was mentioned of free speech, and that was what the public common and the public garden was meant for. Even I believe the Shell over there on the Charles. These are places that are set up for freedom of speech or to have
gatherings,
be able to assemble and not have a problem. And over the years, there have been issues when we first started there, leading, again, public policy questions that we had, which led to ballot initiatives, which was early on. People don't realize that MassCann more or less started the medical bill. This was back in 92 or 94, 92. Where Governor Bill Well had signed it in, but it sat in a desk somewhere. It never was followed through. So again, then MassCann keeps its way, and then public policy question was taking the handcuffs off children, off people, because they possess a plant, and that led to decrim in 2008. And right after that, the police more or less backed away, but there was always, when the event was coming up, again, like Bill said, we have to go to the city to talk about our permit. And that was one of the issues, was that they wanted us to pay the police department. And we refused to, because we looked at it as extortion. And it's a public park. That's the Rangers. That's their park. They have the same authority as the police department. And, they've been good to us. So they do the security there. And over the years, they've maintained it. And I look back in all the years that we've had this, we've never really had a problem. We haven't had a problem, which I think that the whole idea, it's the Freedom Rally.
And that's a phenomenal concept because, Bill, tell us how many people usually come out to this event.
Oh gosh, there's thousands.
I think we had about
the Boston Police years ago.
Say that again?
And yes. It was, like I say, it was a one-day event, a day of civil disobedience, and we talked about it and figured we'd try and do a 2-day event. Which, between the setup and having an extra day, because the day was short. It was 12 to, and we try to make it, like I said, a second day, make it a little later. And it worked for a couple of years. It was okay. And then, well, people wanted to try for a third day. So that was a big step in the direction of, again, being cut short a day.
Right.
You know, vendors make their money at supper time. You know, everybody wants to eat, especially in the common or a public park. Lots of people are walking through. And we went with it. You know, we tried it. Seemed to work out, but it's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
Between Bill and me over a 3-year period, we did that. Yeah, it took a toll. It puts your body to the test. Bill can attest to that. I can certainly attest to that. Just the past couple of years, we both had some real, health issues. Not to say that what caused it, but
a 3-day rally is no good.
To be there, you know, that whole weekend. Yeah. You know, we were camping there. We were the only ones that could actually camp there, but we weren't actually supposed to be there anyway. But the fact that our equipment and everything was there is, again, that's kind of another civil disobedience, is the fact that we're there. We weren't going anywhere. We know we're good people and nothing's going to happen, and we're going to do our best to make sure that everything stayed that way.
I think that's great. It's phenomenal that you guys, how many years has the Boston Freedom Rally gone on again?
This will be the 31st year, so 30 years. You know, like I said, when it got to the 3-day event, yeah, I got a little bit bigger and we had a little more headline acts. It's on the people that you know. You know, a lot of people who came and put a lot to it, which is helpful. I mean, this is a big event that's run by volunteers. All the monies that MassCann collects goes back into MassCann. Nobody gets any money. Nobody gets paid to do this. We're all volunteers.
It goes to
when we started doing the events, it was more or less like-minded people come and help us out, and they come out and do the performance or spoke. You know, they did it because they were, part of the movement and wanted to help the movement. You know, and then as people go off in other directions and do things, yes, the monies that come in we do spend on our production of the rally. But again, monies that's just turned over, put back into MassCann. Again, was trying to use it to, like I said, if more ballot initiatives that we need to do or something like that, which again, that's a lot of money. But people that want to get involved in that, want to talk about it and can do that, we have the people that do that. We know we have the people that, use the right wording and, get these things out. But again, it's about people. Again, we're all volunteers, and it's about people showing up to help out, to do these things. Collecting signatures, is a big thing. To get a ballot initiative on, to be able to, get a public policy question to become a ballot initiative. That's a lot of signature gathering, and that takes a lot of dedication to stay out there and get people to sign, which these days you probably could, but it's getting the people out there to be there for the cause, not just the applause. It's the cause. Too many people in the past 5 years are out there just for the, recognition and the money factor of it. But like I always say is, where were you when this all started?
Exactly.
Where were you when we pushed our foot in the door and opened it for you?
Exactly. We appreciate all your support and what you do for the community. Kathryn, thank you as well for everything that you do. Kathryn's been heavily involved in a number of years as well. And Bill's been activists in the community, and we thank all of you guys for being here and for all you.
I thank you all for keeping us involved and getting involved. I figure we open the door for people to actually get out and speak out. People shouldn't be afraid of this. People shouldn't be afraid to get even when we went up to the State House, talk with our senators and representatives, and they said the same thing. It's nobody comes to talk to us about it.
Absolutely.
So they're going to do whatever that their buddy or whatever is going to push them along. But the more and more we go up there and talk, like Bill says, there's a lot of them that like us. There's a lot of them that don't, or they don't care about our cause. But yes, it's the conversation, it's the communication, and keeping that conversation alive of what we're trying to do and make this change, which you can see it's happening all over. But it seems it's happening a little quicker than everywhere else but Massachusetts. But
yep, exactly.
We're here in Massachusetts, and it's all about dragging the feet because, again, it's all about money.
It is. And Bill, can you give the website one more time so people can get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, the website, www.masscann.org.
Can you spell it for people at home that don't know how to spell that? Is it 2 N's?
2 N's, right. MassCann, one word.
There you go.
MassCann.org.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill Downing. Thank you, Kathryn. We appreciate you guys so much.